Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be part one of a two-part series on how to find a job and win the interview. So make sure you are subscribed to my channel and that you have the notifications turned on so that you will get notified for the second video. So for today's video, we're going to be talking about job searching, how to prepare for job searching, and some of my tips based on my own experience on how to find jobs and prepare for applying for them. The second video in the two-part series will be all about interviews, so my tips on preparing for them and how to get through the interview and to nail it. So let's get into it. And thank you to LexisNexis Canada for sponsoring this video. So there's a lot of tips online on how to job search. I have tried to curate some of my tips based on my own experience and some of the most helpful tips that I got from the various articles and videos that I watched. I tried not to focus on the things that you've heard, like update your resume and cover letter, because that's obvious. My first tip, also kind of obvious, but a little less so, is to update your LinkedIn profile. So if you don't have LinkedIn, you should get it. And if you do have LinkedIn, make sure before you even start applying to jobs that you've updated your LinkedIn profile. So there's a lot of articles and videos online on how to optimize your LinkedIn profile. I'm not going to get into all of that, but I do have 4 tips for you for your LinkedIn profile. So my first tip for LinkedIn is to make sure that you have an up-to-date photo that looks like you and that is a professional looking photo. So no photos of you laying on the beach or having a drink in your hand or anything like that. Ideally, it would be like a headshot style photo that really shows kind of this part of your body up to your shoulders. Just make sure that it's up to date and that you look professional. My second tip is to have a good headline. So a lot of people, when they have a job, in their headline they'll put what their job is. And so you can do that, but if you are looking for a job or you don't currently have a job, I would suggest using your headline to identify the kind of role that you're looking for. So be descriptive. It's not going to be super long. I think you have a limited number of words or characters that you can use. So it's very short, but just try and fit as much in there as you can about the kind of role that you're looking for. I think it's just a great way to add to your brand. The next thing that you should have is a description about yourself. So there's an about section on LinkedIn, and use that section to talk a little bit about yourself. So say some things about yourself, maybe some of your most notable experience, what you're looking for in a position, and anything else really that you'd like to highlight. Again, it's an opportunity to brand yourself, to give people an idea of who you are and what you're about. And the last piece of advice that I have for LinkedIn is to just put your experience on there. So kind of like your resume, I think you could probably just copy and paste from your resume. Just make sure that that is also on LinkedIn so that people can see some of the experiences that you've had. A lot of recruiters use LinkedIn, so it's a great place to kind of also highlight some of that experience. I lied. I have one more tip for LinkedIn. Don't be afraid to add people on LinkedIn that you don't know. So I know a lot of people are a little bit hesitant to connect with people that they don't know, but if somebody adds you or you see somebody on LinkedIn that looks legitimate and that might have something to offer you, I would suggest connecting with them, because you never know who they know or what helpful information that they have that they might post. So don't be afraid to add people that you don't know. It's definitely a great way to build your network. So another helpful tip that I thought was useful when I was looking for a job is to spend some time figuring out what you're actually looking for. There's actually a book called What Color's Your Parachute? I think they do a new version every year, but that is a great book to help you figure out what exactly you're looking for in a job. There are a lot of activities in there that can help you to identify your skills, specifically the ones that you really like to use, and to identify what you like and don't like in a boss, in a work culture or environment, in the job position itself. So I definitely suggest picking up that book if you can, but if not, just spend some time actually figuring out what you're looking for. So like I said, what are your skills that you like using? For example, if you really like researching, when you start looking for positions, if there's a position that doesn't involve research at all, it doesn't mean you take it off your list, but it's just something to consider when you're looking. It gives you a better idea of what kind of positions you actually would like to do. And then again, what do you like in a job? What do you like in a work environment, in a boss? Those are all things that are good to know for the job search process, but also for your interview, so that when you go in, you can ask some questions to kind of assess whether or not the position that you're interviewing for is going to be one that aligns with what you like and what you don't like. My next tip is to spend some time looking for law firms or companies that you would like to work for. This kind of goes without saying. I think for the whole job search process itself, it takes a long time. So don't expect that you are just going to like log on to the internet and find a job right away. You're not. It takes a lot of time. And this particular step takes even more time. But it's a great way to find some jobs that maybe aren't posted, or to find places that you would like to work so that you can kind of keep an eye on them, and if any jobs come up, you can apply for them. So, for example, if I were looking for a position in corporate law, I might literally Google corporate lawyer, corporate law firms, and then my city or my area, and then kind of go through the firms or the lawyers that come up, looking again for the things that I mentioned in the last tip. What's the area of law? What are the different skills that would be required to be successful at this particular company or firm? And what does the culture seem like? You can't necessarily assess all of these based on their websites, etc., but it is a great place to start. And through your search of those kind of generic keywords, you'll likely come across more law firms and more companies, and you can kind of you can literally go down a rabbit hole looking for law firms and companies, etc., to apply to. So it takes a long time, but it's useful, particularly if there's not a lot of jobs posted on like Indeed or something like that. It's a great way to start. And it's also great for sending cold emails if you've been able to identify some firms or companies that you would like to work for that you think align with your values, your skills, and your interests. Once you've found some companies or some law firms that you think you would like to work for, another tip is to look them up on Glassdoor. On there you can see reviews that people have left about what it's like working there or what it's like interviewing there. Again, great prep for your interviews, but also, and you kind of have to take the reviews with a grain of salt, but it is helpful to see what other people have said about working at those specific places. If it has really terrible reviews, it might be something to consider. You should also look at, though, who is leaving those reviews. So if you are interviewing for, a lawyer position and it's all legal assistants who have left reviews, it might not be super reflective of what your experience would be like. So again, just taking everything with a grain of salt, you can make your own judgments, and based on Glassdoor, you don't have to decide yes or no to applying somewhere, but it's just a little bit more information to help you decide what places you would actually like to work at and what would fit with what you're looking for. Another great place to find jobs is through law associations. So for example, in Ottawa, we have the County of Carleton Law Association. So through joining law associations, you'll often find jobs posted that you wouldn't find on Indeed or Workopolis or whatever the heck all the websites are. A lot of the jobs that are posted on law association, forums or boards or whatever, are not found anywhere else. So it's also a great place to find jobs that you might not otherwise know about. So find the law association or associations in your area. It could be in your practice area or also just in your geographical area, and join those as a great place to connect with people and also find jobs. Another thing that you can do is set up some informational interviews. So informational interviews are interviews for information, not for jobs. So you find somebody, again, through researching law firms and companies, you might find somebody who is practicing in the area that you would like to practice in. And so you connect with them and try and set up a quick 15 to 20 minute interview with them where you have the opportunity to ask them what it's like to work in that area. So for example, if you are interested in real estate law, you might find one or a few lawyers that work in real estate law that can give you a bit of information about what their day looks like, what the practice is actually like, what they like about it, what they don't, the challenges, and it just gives you a better sense of what practicing in that particular area would look like for you. Especially because of the pandemic, I'm not sure what's happening with internships, but I'm guessing everything is virtual now, so you don't really get the opportunity to physically shadow someone and actually see what a day in their life and in their practice looks like. So setting up informational interviews is a great way to kind of get that information that you might not otherwise be able to get. So make sure if you set up some informational interviews that you have really good questions going into it and that you don't expect a job out of it, because again, the interview is about information, it's not for a job. So once you've done the informational interview, I would recommend sending a thank you note to the person for taking the time to actually, speak with you and answer your questions. And you could also say something like, if you happen to hear of any positions in this particular area, like please consider me for those positions, and they could let you know about them and you can apply. But don't expect a job out of it, because that's not the point of them. It's just a really great way to learn more about the different areas of practice and to, again, kind of help you narrow down what exactly you're looking for in a job. And again, if you have a particular area of law that you are really interested in, meeting with multiple practitioners in that area is a great way to get kind of a wide variety of perspectives, so you can see, if you think you would like a large firm or a smaller firm, or if you like estates but you don't like estate litigation. It just kind of gives you a little bit more perspective, a little bit more information, so you can make a better decision when you're actually looking for jobs. Another piece of advice that I have, or I don't know if it's advice, it's just kind of a piece of information, is when I was looking for a job, my first job as a lawyer, I found that a lot of resources said, that only a small percentage of people actually find jobs through job search websites like Indeed or Workopolis, I don't know, and that most jobs are actually not posted. And it's not to say that that's not accurate. I think it probably is. I just want for you to consider that perhaps that's not reflective of people who don't have experience in a particular area or don't have connections in that area. So I think there are a lot of jobs that are internal or that are just not posted online that you just kind of have to know someone to get. And that's true, and that's great for people who have those connections. But when you're first starting out in a field, I don't know that you're going to find that kind of a job. If you happen to know someone, great. If you are already an expert in a particular area of law, for example, based on previous experience you had or another career, great. But if you are someone like me who didn't have that, I don't think that, the idea that there are a lot of jobs that just aren't posted is super helpful for you. It didn't really help me very much. My first job I got through Indeed. I applied through Indeed. So it's not to say that it's not accurate. I just think that don't feel like, like there's something wrong because you're not hearing about those positions or you're not finding them. I think that's more tailored to people who have a lot of experience, who are experts in their area, or who just know a lot of people. And if that's not you, which I think probably a lot of people who are starting out in their careers, that's them. There's somebody who doesn't have that experience, etc. I think a lot of what you're going to end up doing is looking for job postings. And that's not to say that informational interviews or cold emails aren't helpful, that kind of like shot in the dark. I think they are. I did a lot of informational interviews before I got my first job, and again, they didn't help me get a job, but they did help me learn a bit about different areas and to build some connections, and I think that that's useful. And it was through a cold email that I got my internship after second year law school, and that internship led to an articling position. So there's definitely room for that, and I think it's useful to do those things. Just know that that piece of advice that, a lot of jobs aren't posted online, I don't know that that really reflects people who are starting out in the field. I think it's more reflective of people who are already in the field, who already have those connections. The last piece of advice or tip that I have is consider the fact that we are in a pandemic. If you are somebody who is applying for a job now when I'm posting this video, or when it's still a pandemic, your considerations and your experience might be a little bit different than mine because of the state of the world. In fact, it likely will be different. So consider that when you are applying to various jobs or when you are looking for jobs to apply for. So, for example, there's probably a lot in the legal field, there's probably a lot of firms that are faring better than others. There's a lot of areas of law that are booming right now, and a lot that maybe aren't as lucrative at the moment. So do some research and try and figure out what companies and what firms are doing really well and will continue to do well throughout this pandemic. And consider also which areas of law might be booming right now. You might be someone who's interested in a particular area of law that's just not super needed right now, and so you might end up finding your first job or a job in a different area than one that you had wanted, and that's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be able to get into that desired field later, but because of the way that the world is right now, you might have to be a little bit less picky about the areas that you want to focus on. I think the best thing you can do is do some research and figure out which firms and which companies are doing really well and which areas of law are really booming right now if you're looking for a legal job, because that's going to be where you fit in. Don't worry so much about what your first job is, even if it's not in an area that you particularly love. You're going to get some valuable skills, valuable transferable skills, and you're going to learn a lot, and it's going to be a good experience for you no matter what. So try not to focus so much on the particular area if, because of the state of the world, you don't get which area you actually want to work in. The last thing I'll say about job searching is don't worry if you feel like there aren't a lot of jobs out there for you, or that you're never going to get a job, or that if you don't get a job in a particular area at a particular firm at a particular time that it's going to ruin your career. It's not. First of all, it's a pandemic right now, so if you have trouble finding a job, I don't think it's going to say anything about you. It literally is a global pandemic, so that helps in some way. For me, based on my experience, I didn't get a job after my first year of law school. I started YouTube and I managed to get a job in second year. I also got an internship. I got an articling position and I got a job as a lawyer. My point is, your career is not over just because you don't find the perfect job at the perfect time. There will always be more opportunities out there, and there are other things that you can do besides just legal jobs if you're not able to find those, because again, there's so many transferable skills in other jobs. Don't worry about getting the perfect job because it's not going to make or break your career. So that is everything that I have for this video. I hope that some of those tips were helpful for you and that they help you to consider your experience and what you're looking for in a different way. And remember to stay tuned for the second video in this series where I'm going to be talking all about interviews. Stay tuned for that video. Make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the notification about that second video. And I will see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye.